Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's AP Lit Live review session. We are really excited y'all are with us. We're winding up April. I cannot even believe it that we're here at the end of the month. The AP exam is right around the corner. I'm Susan Barber from Grady High School, back in my room today, finishing packing up. So shout out to my Grady Knights. Y'all know I love ya. I miss ya. I also want to say hi to Miss Lordeman's class from Eastside High School in Greenville, South Carolina, right up the road from here. And then a little further south is Mr. Escobar in Miami. How you doing today?
I'm doing great today. I've been receiving so many emails about the map that I showed. I think only once in the video lessons, but people have been looking forward to seeing themselves on the map. And when this first started, I want to give some context. It was just, gosh, look how pretty cool this is, right? We're getting all this correspondence from all over the world. We haven't even shared our email addresses or anything, and people are finding us. And then what it became clear was that we're all looking for a sense of community. We're all looking for reassurance that we're not in it alone. And we're certainly not in it alone. When you look at this map and you see that people from all over the United States, and Canada's in here as well, but we have Hawaii, we have Alaska, we have, um, I think, nearly all of the lower 48 states. We're missing just a handful. I haven't received anyone from Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, New Mexico, Arkansas, Delaware, West Virginia, Connecticut, or Rhode Island, but I'm sure we did, and it's just been hundreds of emails to comb through.
Mhm.
But what this tells me is that we're not alone, and we're not just united because of the pandemic. We're not just united because of Corona. We're united because of our love for literature,
Mhm.
and we're united
Mhm.
because we're all working towards ensuring that students put their best foot forward, and students are united as well as they battle this kind monster that is their AP exam. And
Mhm.
then when we look at the world, this just astounds me, because I always thought that I worked in isolation alone in my classroom in room 218. But to think that people all over the world are working towards this common goal. Just this morning, early morning, I was communicating with a teacher from Kuwait and the teacher from Nicaragua, and I have Zoomed with the students from Albania. It's remarkable. And what this tells me is, again, we're not alone. So for everyone out there, even if you're the only person in your country taking this exam, we hope that these video lessons have been helpful, and know that you are forevermore our students and our
Mhm.
colleagues if you're the teachers. And I don't know if I'm going to update the map again, but keep the emails coming. Surely there's people out there who think that they're working in isolation, and they're not. Si hay alguien en México, en Brasil, en Argentina, en Chile, escríbanos. S'il y a quelqu'un en France qui nous écoute, écrivez-nous s'il vous plaît, because we're all in it, like I said, together. So let's get into it today. Last night you had to write an essay, correct, Miss Barber?
It never ends, does it? The essay writing. But honestly, it is coming to an end. But yeah, we looked at the mayor of Casterbridge and just asked you to write an essay. And, that you were supposed to um, look at the complex relationship between the two characters in this essay. So when we pulled this student sample, this is actually an introduction paragraph that is on AP Exam Central as one of the student samples. And so let's look at this paragraph. This is just the intro. And this is different because it's a lot longer than most intros we've looked at. But let's look at this and then we'll talk about it. In this passage from Thomas Hardy's The Mayor of Casterbridge, the narrator describes the relationship between the mayor, Michael Henchard, and his daughter, Elizabeth Jane, with whom he had been previously estranged. Throughout the passage, Henchard, somewhat hypocritically, he is uncultivated himself, sharply and repeatedly admonishes his daughter for various manifestations of her lower class tendencies. Henchard apparently seeks to improve his daughter so that she can better fit into his life as mayor. Yet the more Elizabeth Jane attempts to appease her father, the more he seems to push her away. Thus, between Henchard's verbal aggressions and his shift toward icy verbal neglect, even as Elizabeth Jane changes her behavior to please him, this passage suggests that though the father and daughter have been physically reunited, they largely remain estranged on an emotional level. Wow, there's so much there. And again, this is a student's intro. And this is what I want to say about this. If you are writing a 2-sentence introduction and you have your thesis that answers the prompt and you have established a line of reasoning in your thesis, you've given us a promise of what we're going to find in the rest of the paper, boom, that is great. And you can move on and save all of your analysis, all of your commentary for the body part of the essay. If you are a more advanced writer and part of your writing style is writing long introductions like this, then you do that, and that's perfectly acceptable as well. There is not one right way to do this. So by this point in the year, you should know what feels comfortable to you and what you're capable of. So you lean into that and you go with that. But we did want to show you an example of a longer one, since most of the examples we've shown up to this point have been shorter. So some things that are good about, I mean, there's a lot,
It's a
honestly.
lot. Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a lot that's good about this. But we see Henchard apparent, this language that sets up the complex relationship. Already we're setting this up in the intro. So we know that there's, if the writer follows through, that they're fully going to unpack that. Henchard apparently seeks to approve, yet the more and the more and thus and though, and even like I love where it talks about this shift toward icy verbal neglect. So in the intro, we have all of this language showing progression and development. And that is going to definitely establish a line of reasoning. And now all this writer has to do is just go through these points paragraph by paragraph and unpack them in their
And live
writing.
up to it, right? Yeah.
So much good stuff here.
And what we're going to be talking about today is the actual body paragraph, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, how do we develop a paragraph that has commentary, and commentary is just what are you going to say about the text. So you're going to bring in evidence, and we've already talked about that. Choosing your evidence that's sufficient, choosing evidence that's specific, and now what are you going to say about that evidence? You want to explain why that evidence is important, why you've chosen that, why you think it furthers your argument, but also you can talk about part of your commentary can be how this evidence shows a progression in the relationship or the character development, and how the evidence ties back to your thesis statement. All of these are ways that you can expand upon your evidence, provide commentary.
And I think that yesterday's video and the homework from the night before that was demonstrating to students that there are places in the body that
Mm-hmm.
already require that expansion. But the first step is not to know how to expand, but to recognize those instances that need expansion. So I would go back to those
Mm-hmm.
videos, the last two videos, to try to get a sense for where it is that we put those why questions. And we're going to mirror that today as well, because that is the first step, right? A lot of times students will look at a paragraph and not know where the expansion, needs to come in. The expansion, by the way, is not more evidence. It's not about another quote. It's about you saying something about how that quote supports the thesis or leads to a new or more profound degree of interpretation.
And as I tell my students, like, you just like this with commentary on evidence, especially, more is more. The more you can tell us why it's important, how it relates back to the thesis, how it shows a progression of ideas, the more of that you can unpack for each piece of evidence you give, the better.
And if we look at the rubric and we're looking at the final column for
Yep.
that middle row, right? This is the max number of points. So at this point, if you've been following the videos, we've already spoken about the thesis row. Now we're focusing, and we've been focusing this week on this middle row. And tomorrow we're going to focus on the final row, which is the sophistication row. But we want to try to maximize our points here because this is a lot more concretely attainable, I think,
Mhm.
um, than maybe row C is. So how do we try to get into the fourth column here? And we've identified two key aspects of commentary here. At the top, it says consistently explains how the evidence supports a line of reasoning. Notice that it's not about the inclusion of evidence exclusively. It is about how that evidence explains or
Mhm.
supports. You explain how it supports the line of reasoning. And at the bottom, organize and support an argument as a line of reasoning composed of multiple supporting claims, each with adequate evidence that is clearly explained. Notice that we don't end at evidence. It doesn't just say each with adequate evidence. It says each with adequate evidence that is clearly explained. So that is the goal today, for us to understand the purpose of developing our commentary. Let's take a step back and let's understand, in a body paragraph, we're going to have claims, we're going to have evidence, and we're going to have commentary. What purpose um, does each component serve, right? Claims provide answers. This is where you take a stance. I'm going to argue X. Evidence provides proof that claims are text-based. We cannot just say Ludi Johnson is
Mm.
searching for a hot dog stand because that's what you think she's doing as she's walking the streets. There is no evidence to support that claim. Whereas if you say she is searching for an adequate home for her family, there will be evidence to support as she's looking for that vacancy sign to see how many rooms are available. But that's not where we end. We have to, again, look at the top of this slide. We have to focus on the development of commentary. So what does commentary do? Excuse me. It clarifies the link between the claims and evidence and the thesis. So you say something in the claim and you provide evidence, but it's your responsibility to explain to us, the reader, your audience, how that claim and that evidence relates back to your thesis. If we forget your thesis, and this happens all the time, I'm reading a student essay and I forget what they're arguing because I haven't been reminded of it, or it hasn't been apparent in the writing, in the text of the actual body. So you must clarify that link for us. You have to extend the analysis beyond the text. And this is something that we're going to touch upon tomorrow, I believe, where we see the passage, where we see the characters and the setting and the conflict and everything that's going on. And we see it as a reflection of humanity, the human condition, the human experience, all these universal applications of theme. We don't leave that for the last sentence of the essay. We don't leave that as this single epiphany that you will um,
Mhm.
uh, inorganically stick at the end of an essay. If you truly believe that these characters and this passage is a reflection of society, then that's going to be embedded throughout your commentary. Here is a claim, here is some evidence, and here is how these two components serve to say something about the rest of humanity. And commentary also delineates new depths of understanding as the essay progresses. What we mean by this is that development aspect that Ms. Barber mentioned in that introduction, that the student was saying, and maybe I'll go back, the student says, yet the
Mm-hmm.
more, and then the
Mm-hmm.
more, and then thus. As
Mm-hmm.
we see this escalation, I'm going to draw a conclusion. I'm going to draw an interpretation of that evidence. So these are three. And then look, there's other things as well. Ms. Barber and I are simply trying to brainstorm for you, right? But however these three things make sense to you, that's what should be part of the commentary. Ms. Barber.
Yeah, there's not just one way to provide commentary. You can talk about any of these things, and that's sufficient commentary. If you were in my class, every time you turn in an essay in my class, it's highlighted in 3 highlighters. I have highlighters all around my room. I've just packed them up actually. Claims are one color, evidence is another color, and commentary is the final color. And I really want my students to visually see what amount of their paper is devoted to each of these. And we really want the commentary to outweigh the evidence. You just don't want tons and tons of quotes dropped in without explaining them. So, so
Yeah, that visual, I think sometimes communicates more, conveys more than just reading or even peer editing.
mhm.
It's undeniable what is at the forefront of that body paragraph when they see the colors, right?
Mhm.
So what is the function of commentary? It does these three things, but why? Well, as you develop your commentary, your analysis becomes clear.
Mhm.
Oftentimes we ask students, well, what do you mean by this? And the answer is a little bit funny, right? Because students are like, well, what I really meant was, what do you mean what you really meant was? Well, if that's what you really meant, then that's what you should have written. You cannot assume that your audience will know what's in your head. You have to communicate that to your audience. You have to hold their hand and guide them through your thoughts and your interpretation so that we can clearly see. We don't want it to be this opaque image. We want it to be a clear, crisp image of what it is that's in your head. But again, we don't start by simply answering these three red, they're not questions, but addressing these three
Mhm.
statements, but rather we have to know where there's room to develop the commentary. So we're gonna try this. And notice the banner that's at the top. We're no longer going to focus on a single skill. So it's not just, is there enough evidence, or is, am I grammatically correct? Or we have to think about everything at this point. Every lesson that we have done, every lesson that we have not done, right? I mean, it seems like so many videos, but 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 this course is intended to be taught over 10 months, over an entire year. Um, so we got to keep all those things in mind as we read this. So, Ms. Barber, I want you to be critical. I want you to be mean. I want you to be cruel because I want to be a better writer.
I think I can help you be a better writer without being mean and cruel, but let's
All
go
right.
for it.
Okay. All right. Let's try this. Henchard's relationship with his daughter is not just negative.
Okay, let's stop there. If it's not
Uh,
just, I know already, if it's not just negative, it's not just negative, but what else?
okay. But it is complex because he constantly seeks her presence.
Okay, it's not just negative, but it's complex because he constantly seeks her presence. So, how does his seeking her presence, how does that make it not negative? Could you explain that a little more? And could you even go on? Could you give me some evidence where you see maybe you drop, small phrases into each of those? But tell me, how are those connected? Because sometimes people seek other people's presence, but maybe it is to feed off negativity.
Negativity.
So I
I
do
see
want you
what you
to
mean.
explain that a little more.
And how about, do you understand what I mean by the word negative?
Tell me.
Um, I just meant
because
negative.
that's a
That doesn't tell
broad
you enough.
word.
Yeah.
It's
So
not just negative. Why would it be negative? Why would you say it's negative? Yeah, I would like a little
yeah,
more on
this
that.
reminds me, one of the past videos, you mentioned that we should be as specific as possible. Maybe
Correct.
that's one of those instances where I was a little general.
Yes.
But maybe I do give evidence. Let's see. However,
Okay.
Elizabeth busies herself with manual labor. Not really. I think I'm moving on to something else. However,
Mhm.
Elizabeth busies herself with manual labors, and she would go to the kitchen instead.
So why did you put that in there? What is that showing? What is that? How is that furthering your argument about the relationship is not just negative, it's complex because he's seeking her presence? I don't understand fully the connection between that
Mm,
and what you said earlier.
yeah, I think I wanted to connect the idea that he seeks her, but she
Okay.
doesn't. And I also noticed that I didn't put end quotes here, which is probably not the right thing to do. So
Um,
there's some connections, I guess, that I can build here, right?
yeah, absolutely. Say what you said just a minute ago. How are you extending your thought?
Well, it's clearly not clear to my teacher, right? What was
Mm-hmm.
clear in my head was that he is seeking her, but
Mm-hmm.
she makes herself busy. So I thought
Yeah.
that spoke to the relationship because it's not um it's not reciprocated. This
And I do like that you start with this sentence with however, but why might she be busying herself? Could you address
ah
that?
that's
Is she
gold right there.
avoiding him?
Okay.
Um, yeah, why would
Okay.
she be busying herself?
Okay, that's awesome.
Hmm.
The harshest treatment of Elizabeth centers on how she speaks. If you bide where you be a minute.
Mm.
It's
And
not embedded, is it?
it's not embedded. Um,
No attribution? Like who says this?
right. So we worked on embedding quotes. I think you can embed that there. And then I still want you to tell me what we learn from this quote. What do we learn about Elizabeth here? What do we learn about Henchard here? How
So
does,
we can learn something about a character because of how they sound or how they speak. Is that what you're
absolutely,
telling me? Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
And then how might what she's saying here complicate their relationship?
That's asking for a lot.
It's asking for a lot. Now, let me say this also. It's asking for a lot. There are a lot of ways you can expand this. Some of these you may thought about, some of these you may have not have thought about.
But do I
You
have
can,
to expand on all of them
that's
to
what
write
I'm
a
about. Hold on, student. That's about what I'm going to say. Um, yeah, you don't have to go in all of these different ways, but this should be encouraging to you as a writer because there are so many ways you can extend your commentary here. So there's no way you could address all of these different ways, but there are lots of opportunities for you to be more specific in your analysis.
Okay, I feel better about the fact that I don't have to do it for every sentence because
Correct.
I do see how I could do it for every sentence if it were
Right.
maybe like a take-home essay, if I had a week or
Correct.
two to work on it.
You don't have a week or two.
Okay.
45 minutes.
Oh, give me
I know.
50.
You can do it.
Then then her father said that she was only fit to carry wash.
What
Yeah.
does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah, there's no
Why would
connection,
he
is
say
there?
that?
Yeah. Okay. And it makes sense to
This,
me. He's correcting her or he's commenting on her language and where her language will take her in life, but I don't say any of that to you.
right. And you made the point earlier in another video that you can assume that the
Wait, I'm a teacher
reader,
again.
yeah, exactly.
All
You
right.
can assume that the reader knows um, the plot and what's happening, so we don't have to summarize plot, but you cannot assume that the reader of your essay is making all of the connections with the analysis. That's that's the heavy lifting that we're asking you to do.
And then the final sentence here, just I thought I was really smart when I wrote it. This
Okay.
relationship probably mirrors other people's relationship with their parents.
Um, I really like the direction you're going. I think what I would like for you to do is tell me how. How does it mirror other people's relationships with their parents? I mean, and you want to be sure that it connects back to all of your evidence in here. And you do have evidence in there, but because you've not explained it thoroughly and built to this at the end, there's a huge disconnect. You've just dropped this broad insight at the end. It's not incorrect, but you've not made the connection to it.
Then it would probably be beneficial. I'm a teacher again. It would probably be beneficial for students to understand that they don't have to drop that sentence. And if they choose to extend beyond the text, it doesn't have to be the last sentence of any of your body paragraphs. It could be embedded wherever it organically fits. If you see that some dynamic between Elizabeth and her father
Yep.
does mirror society, well, you stick it there. It's going to make a lot more sense in the middle of the paragraph than at the end. This sort of catch-all statement.
And we're going to look at specific examples about broader context woven throughout the paragraph in tomorrow's lesson with the sophistication point.
Perfect. So there is tons to do
Tons
for
to
this
do.
paragraph, right? Which
You
is
just
great because
choose
that's going
where.
to be the homework.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
All right. So let's debrief.
So when we think about commentary, you just always want to be asking yourself, you've read closely, you've chosen your evidence. Now you want to think of what are the different ways I can develop my commentary? How can I explain why I used this evidence? How does it further my argument and show a progression of ideas in my argument? And how does it relate back to the thesis? Those are all ways that you can extend your analysis and your commentary.
This skill 7C really captures a lot, doesn't it?
It's a lot. And I love how it's so specific. I love that there's not just one way to give analysis. I mean, this really gives you some tools of these are different things that I can hit on in my analysis. I think it makes writing commentary easier, honestly.
And I think it really communicates the link between the thesis and the eventual commentary that will be provided in the essay. Those two are linked. There's no way to separate them, ideally.
Have you looked
So
at Quill?
I have not had time to look
Me
at
neither,
Quill,
but we
um,
will.
but I am excited about
Yeah,
Quill, and I'm meeting with my students tomorrow, I believe. So I need to
good.
set up my account tonight, play with it just for a bit to make sure that I can guide my students. And this is going to make a huge impact on my students. I'm really
Good.
excited. So again, teachers create an account, students take a diagnostic, and then they take these 10-minute lessons based on the needs that each student individually has. So it should help them and it should keep them engaged. And again, we want to remind students out there that you can access practice prompts on your own. If you log into AP Classroom, you click on AP Classroom, then you click on where it says this first box over here where it says click here for optional student practice. You click on that and you're going to get a list of prompts. All these prompts are already, they've been selected because they align to the skills and the format of the exam. You're going to click on whichever prompt you choose. Then you're going to write your response in the text box at the bottom. Then you click your response. Um, you agree to submit it. You can review types of responses that can earn you points in different parts of the rubric. And of course, these are individual to all the different courses that are out there. And then you can make changes to your essay at that point or to your response, and then you can eventually submit it. Last night you wrote this essay. So today you're going to do two things. Miss Barber and I had this mock student teacher conversation regarding this paragraph. I suggest that everyone rewinds just a bit, or slide the the time back a bit and listen to our conversation. That's going to tell you where commentary can be added, the type of commentary that should be added, and then your homework is to expand the commentary in this paragraph. So you should end up with an awesome, awesome, awesome paragraph, which ultimately should be the type of paragraph that you model in your writing on the day of the exam and in all the practice writings that you're going to do between now and the exam. After you have done this and you've gotten a sense for where commentary should be expanded and the type of comments that can be added to make the paragraph more robust and more analytical, then we want you to go back to the essay you wrote last night, select any of your body paragraphs, and then improve them based on the ideas and the concepts that we discussed today. So essentially your essay is to rewrite two body paragraphs, the one that we provided and one from your own essay.
And then tomorrow we're going to be talking about row C, the sophistication point. Looking forward to that conversation. So we will see you tomorrow. And the last day, is that the last day of April? No, tomorrow's the 29th, but almost. So
We're
y'all
getting
have
there.
a good rest of the day.
Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.